Hello, everyone. My name is Mariah Simmons, and I am your instructor for this course. Last week, we basically covered just a brief intro into technology. So, that was just getting you used to what technology is and how technology has evolved to the point we are today. So now that everyone has gotten settled into their courses, we're now going to start diving deeper into computers and computer science. So today we are going to pretty much be covering everything that goes on in your computer. So basically, we're understanding what's powering your PC or your personal computer. So we use computers every day. But how often do you stop and ask yourself what's really going on inside? For many of you, you probably have never even seen the inside of a computer or weren't interested to know what was in the computer. You just wanted it to turn on and do what you asked. However, there's a lot of various components inside the computer that help work together to power what you're trying to do. So that's what we're going to be looking at in this lecture. So there's four key functions of a computer that you need to recognize. That's going to be your input, processing, storage, and output. So let's deep dive into each one. As you configure, input means any way that you're inputting information into your computer. So that's going to be your primary keyboard, mouse, microphone, or any other thing that you decide to connect into your computer. Now, your processing is actually what is the primary source of how your computer runs. That's the CPU, which we like to call the central processing unit. You, of course, have your storage components because how else would you store stuff? So, this would be where your files or your music or your games are living. So, that would be in RAM or in your hard drive, or as some of you may know, USB or SSD cards. So that would be your storage. Of course, as you know, you can add different storage components on as time goes on. For many of you, if you play game consoles, you know all about storage, and especially nowadays with digital games, you really need extra storage to play those. And lastly, you have your output. So that's going to be your computer monitors, displaying your computer, speakers, printers, and anything else that will be giving you something from the computer. So every computer has two different parts. You're going to have your hardware and you're going to have your software. So the hardware is what you want to remember as the physical components. So they're basically the ones that you can touch. So yes, technically you can touch your CPU if you were to open up your computer. You can touch your RAM or hard drive or your monitor or your keyboard. In many cases, many of you may have a laptop. So of course that would be all what's in the bottom part of your laptop. So if you were to unscrew it, if you have that capability, because some don't, then you can see inside and find all these components that I just mentioned. But your hardware is pretty much the main components of your computer. That is what is going to perform any task that is basically told by the software. So, for that case, software is going to be internal. That's everything you can't see, stuff you can't touch. And that is what's telling the hardware, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. So, think of this as your operating system, whether you have Windows or Mac or Linux. Any applications, any games you like to play in your web browsers like Google or Firefox. So, for you to completely understand how the computer is working, we're going to basically look into the main component of your computer, which is the CPU. So think of the CPU as the brain of the computer. It's the one that thinks about what is going to happen and how it's going to happen. So it basically executes instructions. So basically, these instructions are going to come from the programs or the softwares that you have on your computer. So, for example, if you go to Google, then it's basically telling your CPU, hey, we need to go to Google, do what you have to do to make that happen. Um, it performs calculations and operators. So basically, if there's something you need to figure out, or if there's something it needs to figure out in regards to how to run a program, it does that. And it also coordinates tasks that go on. So it just pretty much is like a manager as well. It's just going to make sure that everything is running how you need it to run. So now that we covered the CPU, and of course there's many more components in there that are, of course relevant, but as this is an intro to CS course, I won't deep dive into it to lose some of you. So um, that is one of the main primary parts of the computer that I at least want you to know. Um, and there is, of course, other components that you're going to also do in lectures or in assignments, I should say, that will help you deep dive a little further. But there is a little activity before I continue on in the slides, just to make sure that everyone watches this fully. So, every lecture is going to have hidden keywords in it. So if you made it this far and you actually listen, then you can find this keyword. Now, every lecture is going to have it scattered within the lecture somewhere. And I'm just going to say, hey, your keyword for this lecture is. So you are responsible for keeping track of this keyword. And I will ask you through an assignment each week what the keywords were. So make sure you remember what the keywords are. So, your first keyword is computer because that's what we're talking about. So, that's your first keyword. So, write that down so you can get your points. So, I know that you actually watched this through. Okay? First keyword computer. All right. Now I'm back from my commercial and let's continue on. So, on the screen, we're basically going to meet your operating system. So your operating system is like the coordinator of your computer. Many times you don't necessarily choose what operating system this is unless you are building your own computer. And in that case, even if you do build your own computer, you can generally only have Windows or Linux because Apple is very secure, as some of you may know. But basically, your operating system is the software that's managing your hardware, running apps, basically allowing you to interact with your computer. So, if you didn't have an operating system, your computer would look very boring, and I will show you what that would look like in a few slides. But basically, your operating system is what makes your computer's interface or what you see look pretty. So just think of the OS as like a chef, right? So your operating system is the one that has all these different things going on. It's basically juggling a lot of different interactions, or in the case of a chef, multiple dishes, checking times, and making sure nothing happens in the kitchen so you can deliver good quality food. The same thing would happen with your OS. It's basically juggling whatever you're telling it to do, making sure that each one has their appropriate time and needs to run, and then it's also making sure that nothing is colliding or causing interference with each other. So here are the overall functions of an OS. So in your case, like I said, many of you are probably using a Windows or a Mac, and each one of those have the same functions. It's just they run a little differently. But overall, you're going to have your resource management, which is just controlling how your memory or your CPU or your storage is. File system controls, so that will be where your files live, downloads, documents. Task scheduling, so that's just making sure that it's managing the time or it's managing the memory that it takes to run specific tasks that you're asking it to do. So for my people that love to have millions of windows and browser tabs open, this would be those cases. So yes, it does slow down your computer if you didn't know. So just a tip, always try to close what you don't need so that your computer will run as fast as possible. And lastly, your security, your access control. So it's pretty much just allowing you to have different user profiles, securing them, making them personalized, and protecting any data on that. So, how exactly is the operating system connecting to the rest of the computer, right? So, the operating system is really just a software. So, it basically connects to other software and it connects to your hardware. So, if you look at this diagram and it's reading from top to bottom, let's say you were to open up a web browser, Google, and then Google would find a way to connect to your operating system for some use cases. So, let's say for example, you go to Google and you find a picture you like, right? So if Google never connected to your operating system, it wouldn't have a way to save whatever picture you like. So Google has to connect to your operating system, and your operating system has to overall connect to your hardware to access your storage components to basically store that um, image. So all of these work together hand in hand and they trade functionality between each other. So although we are reading from top to bottom, it could also go bottom to top. For example, if you are trying to put something back on to the internet or upload something, that would be another case. So all of these connect and they work together to basically present to you what you see on your computer. So, how exactly is all of this going on? So, as I mentioned, it's pretty much keeping track of everything that's going on. And of course, you can view this. So, if you are one who is curious, look up how to view your task on your computer. I would tell you, but like I said, everyone may have a different computer, so I don't want to spend time on that. But if you are curious, go look up how your tasks run. So your OS is basically the one managing this. So if you're the type that likes to have Apple Music or Spotify in the background, or if you like to play games and then play music at the same time, it basically is the one that's juggling all these tasks. And it's making sure that those tasks run smoothly. So let's say you want to turn off your music quickly and then turn off your game quickly. It's basically making sure, or it's trying to make sure that it happens instantly. However, if there is a delay, that's probably because your computer is overburning, not literally, but it's basically doing too much and it can't run as quickly as it's supposed to. So that is a use case of that as well. But your OS is basically your internal manager of all your tasks, and it's basically communicating directly with your CPU to make sure these things are running smoothly. So there's two ways you can actually talk and use your computer. So there's the graphical user interface and there's a command line interface. So we're going to go into each one. So your graphical user interface, or what we like to call GUI, it says GUI, but it is pronounced GUI. So your GUI is what you're actually looking at on your computer screen. So as you're looking at my computer screen, that's a GUI. So we're right now looking at a GUI for this presentation. So that is what's allowing you to interact with it. So each one is different based on your operating system. So my Mac users, yours would look like the one in the center of the screen, and Windows is in the bottom right. The GUI is what changes often, or not often, but it does change, I would say over a decade for each operating system. Windows recently went to Windows 11, and of course, it will continue to change from years on. But that's basically what a GUI is. It's basically what you can see, and that allows you to use your computer through that GUI. So if the GUI did not exist, you would be communicating with your computer like this, that black box right there. So when the computers were first started, there was no GUI interface. Most people only saw this black screen, and you had to learn these commands to basically run your computer. So on the screen, we have the command line interface, CLI. Most people just call it a command line. And this is another way you can interact with your computer. For some of you, you can go to command prompt, or you can go to, I believe it's the same on both, or it's a little different on Mac, but you can go to your command and pretty much tell your computer what to do. So that would be going in and saying, hey, I want to go into this folder and I want to delete this file. So basically, what you see in this black box right here is basically saying that first line dir is saying I want you to access my directories, which is also known as your folders. And it's basically saying CD, which just means I want you to go into my downloads folder. So that second line is saying go into my downloads folder. And that last line is saying delete the text file that is named old underscore file. So that is how you can also interact with your computer. So if you guys are interested in that, I would highly suggest looking up command line for any computer science majors or people interested in computer science. You do actually technically learn this in detail in further classes, but never hurts to get a head start. But like I said, this is often only used by your IT professionals or any developers because they are the ones that know that this is this. So it's not that you have to interact this way, but if you are really into IT and computers, then definitely add this to something to learn to your list. All right, so let's stop here for another keyword before we continue on. We're almost there. I know that these lectures may seem long, but think of it as sitting in person. The same thing would happen. So, sorry if it seems very long, but it would be long in person, but at least you can stop and start as you please. So, that's the good part about this. All right, your second keyword. Your second keyword for this lecture is going to be science. So, let's remember that one. I'm not going to repeat them because then you could learn to skip through and find, the last one that I'm saying. So, your second word is science. All right. So, let's get into the rest of this lecture. So, now that we have talked about the general basics of your computer, like I said, I didn't go into depth, but I pretty much told you the important parts that you may need to know. How does computer science connect to all of this? So you are in an intro to computer science course, but how does this all connect? So first we need to know what computer science is, and that's basically just the study of how computers work and how they tell what to do. So I was a computer science major. I loved computers and I wanted to figure out how our computers are running because obviously, as you know, over the years, computers have pretty much become a primary source of everything in our lives. You now go shopping with them, you're doing this class with them, you're doing assignments for other classes on them, playing games, etc. So I basically wanted to know how computers work, how you can use them, and how they can solve problems. So there's various components of computer science that you basically would study. So for my people who are undecided or my people who are looking into computer science, this is basically everything you would cover. So that goes from programming to algorithms to how data works, studying your hardware and your software, cybersecurity. So how are you keeping your system safe? And now, more recently, AI and machine learning. So, of course, a few years ago, nobody saw AI or machine learning coming, or at least we didn't. The people who were building it did. But imagine if AI didn't exist. So, I know many of you use AI, as many of us all do. However, AI is now going to start taking over a lot of industries. So, it could impact your career, it could impact my career because now it can do pretty much anything you need it to do. But the problem is, it's now basically doing your job for you. So a lot of people are not learning how they need to learn, and it basically does them a disadvantage. So if you are using AI improperly, then it basically does not help you. It really harms you because then you don't know how to do things. Because just think about it. What if one day all of our servers and all of our computers black out? Then if you need to do your job, do you know how to do it without your computer? So that's what I like to say. So always make sure when you're using AI that you're using it properly, that you're using it to learn instead of just using it to tell you the answers so you can keep going, because that doesn't really help you in the long run. So just always keep that in mind. But all of these topics are covered in computer science. Generally, for computer science, most of your time lives in the programming or the cybersecurity side. And for many different scenarios, let's say you think this is interesting, you could always do computer science as a minor at any school that you choose to transfer to as well. So just keep that in mind. As you know, technology is involved with every single career there is, so it would never hurt to minor in it, and sometimes it can earn extra money for you. So just keep that in mind. So, why does it matter? So, your computer science is basically how everything runs, how you're using your computer, how I'm using this computer right now. Everything you're using is technology now. So, for you to understand how it works, that's where computer science comes into play. Now, you may think I don't necessarily need to know computer science, but you actually do. And that's why you're in this course, because computers are used in every single career field. They're used in healthcare, finance, engineering, education, even culinary. So, every single career known to man uses technology in some way, shape, or form. So, you understanding how technology works brings another skill set to your career in the future. So, what exactly could you do with CS in your major? So, for my bio people, you might use it for DNA algorithms. Any research studies that you'll be doing, you would need to process that data, storing it somewhere. For my business people, you want to do your analytics or automation tasks so you don't have to do it. So, if you're in HR or something like that, you could set up some sort of program that would run tasks that you constantly have to do for you. For my art people, you can use your computer to design. You can use 3D modeling. You can do digital media. That would be your Photoshop, Lightroom, all of your Adobe products, working on those. And even for psychology. So you can basically use your computer to pretty much do AI to mimic the human mind, which it already does, but it's just for research purposes, I guess, in this case. But there are millions of ways that computers and computer science relate to whatever degree you are doing. So, although you are wondering, why am I in this course? This is why you are in this course, because it all connects. All right? So, just remember that CS is for everyone, right? So, like I just covered, every field needs it, every field uses it. So, for my people out there that are wondering how to get more involved in CS, you can do basic coding. So, for my people who just want to know one programming language, Python is the easiest, and that is actually used in all industries, more specifically in biology, I've seen, math as well. But you can take electives or online courses. I know we offer it here. And you can also use it for a tool in your field. So, your Excel sheets are creating simulations, and you can also collaborate with CS majors on projects. So, let's say you don't necessarily want to be the one doing it, but you can collab with someone who does. So, it is for everyone. So, just keep that in mind. So, basically, it's all about problem solving with computer science. So, code is a specific part, but the real part is to solve a problem. So, how can we solve this issue? And how can your computer be used to solve this issue? So, basically, computer science is going to empower every field, regardless of what field you're going in, because you're going to be using technology in some way, shape, or form. So, although computer science looks at computers, it also looks at all aspects of technology because the computer is a part of all technology. So, basically, computer science is for everyone, not just me or not for the CS majors in here. It's literally for all of us, which is why you are taking this course. So, to close out, you don't have to be a computer scientist to think like one. Okay? So, I know most of you are like, I'm just ready to get this course over, but I promise you the things you're going to learn in this course are going to be very interesting and it could be useful in your career. So, to close out, um, remember that you do have your keywords that I have hidden in here. So there will be an assignment with that where you would have to enter those keywords to get your credit for participation in watching the lecture. But I just want you all to think about it, everything that I mentioned in here. Your computer is technically your best friend right now for college in this course, and understanding how it works is step one of you being empowered into the world of computer science. So now that we've covered your basics on your computer itself, we will deep dive into how data is going to be working with it. So thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in our next lecture.